Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Broken by Concept, episode 220. Today, we're going to be covering the big topic, first and foremost, of the rough start to Split 3. Now, I have made a YouTube video on this topic. We're going to be going a little bit more in depth today on the BBC podcast. Now, I think a good place to start, Nathan, was this kind of post or series of points from a release from Riot, relating to the ranked placements and I guess some of the adjustments that they were looking to do for Split 3. Now, at a high level, right, the premise from Riot has been that they wanted to make a little bit harder to achieve some of the higher ranked tiers.
Talking about Emerald Plus.
Emerald Plus. And so, quote, getting Emerald, Diamond, Master, for example, should be hard. And in some regions, a lot more players were getting into these ranks than what we feel is aligned with the player's perception of difficulty to get these ranks. In addition, we added some more decay to player skill when they've been away for a while, etc., etc. Now, this is a bit of this opened a can of worms. There's a lot to unpack here, and I think if you have played solo queue so far in Split 3, especially at the very beginning of the split, you probably felt a lot of pain.
You and I, Curtis, I had a negative win rate my first week. I think I had a 48%. I think you had a 30%.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah. And now we're fully on track. Everything's sort of stabilized. We're chilling. I think I'm rank 100 at the moment. You're like 250 or whatever it is, Diamond 1 and 2. So we are, it's stabilizing again. But the first week, people were going crazy. Streamers, everything.
The first thing that I want to talk about. The first thing is how difficult it is to get back to the rank that you finished in the previous split. Okay, so I want to use Charlie as an example. So Charlie, from the We Teach League universe, he sent me a screenshot of his account, and he had finished certain whatever it was 300 LP master in the previous split or whatever the hell it was, and he showed me his OPG, and I had something like 30 wins, 15 losses, whatever. It was actually a pretty good win rate. And he was still sitting in like Diamond 4. And in any other split, any other season, if you had the high MMR that he had being multiple, finished Master Tier for many, many years and seasons, with this sort of win rate, you'd be so much closer to Master Tier than you would be here. And he's sitting at like the bottom of Diamond. And he literally said, Curtis, if this was last split, I would have already been Master Tier.
Yeah, it'd be Master like 50 LP or something.
Because the LP gains would push you up so quickly back to that rank. Now, this has positives and negatives. Let's start first by talking about the negatives. Now, I'm sure that you also experienced some negative, had some people losing their minds in your Discord.
Lots of confusion, lots of emotion.
And the point that I made in my YouTube video, Nathan, is that if you worked your ass off to get a particular rank, and I used a bit of an anecdote of, let's say, little Jimmy working his ass off all the way, split 1, split 2, makes his way to Diamond 4, plays a few of his placements in split 3, ends up at the bottom of the barrel in Emerald 4 with a negative win rate, losing games in Emerald. What's that going to do to the psychology of little Jimmy?
What's that going to do to the psychology of little Jimmy? The games against me, you look at the matchmaking, you're looking up your teammates, look at their past season ranks, because the matchmaking was very chaotic the first week, which is why the sort of the negative win rate sort of happened. And then you would also as well be like, oh, well, I'm so far below my skill level, Emerald. But so this is where it gets into the conversation where, Riot sort of just poorly communicating this. We didn't know about this going to the split. We had to do this and that. They put out this announcement. Probably barely any people saw this anyway. What we're seeing on the screen here, that these ranks now mean different for other seasons. So if you're Diamond 4, that's the equivalent. If you're Diamond 4 last season, that is the equivalent of Emerald 4. So if you don't understand that or don't know that that's the case, then you're going to be like, oh, wow, I'm just Emerald 4. Am I just 400 LP below my skill level last split? So you would be really angry. I don't blame him. You would be angry.
And because of the harder MMR reset as well, everyone, if you were Diamond 4, you're probably still versing Diamond 4 players in Emerald 4.
Exactly right,
so,
yes.
So a lot of people get tricked by this one.
Yeah.
So I had another client who was finished, he's literally finished 400 LP in Master. after his placements is sitting in Diamond 4 and he's losing games, the majority of his games in Diamond 4. And he said, Curtis, I've lost it. I've lost my mind. And I said, well, look, if you actually break it down, you're literally versing the same players you were versing a few weeks ago, but now in Diamond 4. But psychologically, like at a surface level, if you're losing, you see the number, Diamond 4 going from 50 LP to 25 LP, that you're not going to look at the OPGs and be like, yeah, but I'm versing Master.
Honestly, even if you do look, you still look at that rank. It's like, okay, Diamond has meant this to me over the last couple. You don't just change that.
No.
Overnight, like your perception of what that rank means. And
especially since like we have such an emotional connection with rank. It's not logical. Yeah. We're not logical. It's an, you know, there's ego involved, there's pride involved, there's all of these other, you know, messy emotions in the ranked experience. We're not hyper logical. And even if the percentiles did change, it's not really gonna it's not really gonna change how you're gonna feel about that particular rank, right? At least in the short term anyway. And so, you know, like I said in my video, Nathan, like I think if you're going to make this big of a change, if you're going to do this hard of a MMR reset, if you were going to send people back 400 LP, why not make it ultra clear to the player base?
Because this is going to really hurt the player base, you know? People would probably be, I reckon there'll be at least thousands of people that quit the game because they're like, okay, or they've switched account or something because they're like, all right, I was Diamond 4 last season. I'm now Emerald 4 and I'm literally gaining plus 22, minus 23. That's just going to be impossible for me to just make that up. What's the point? That is just such a massive climb.
Especially if you were Diamond. Let's say again, that little Jimmy who got to Diamond, you were probably setting your sights on Diamond 2 or Master tier.
And that is just out of the realm.
Holy moly. Think about that. Yeah. You've literally gone backwards in your mind, potentially 800 LP. Right, because mentally you were probably envisioning getting Master Tier by the end, or Diamond 2 by the end of Split 3. Now we're in Emerald 4 with a negative win rate, and also you got to remember this, Nathan. How long it took people the first time they went from Emerald 4 to Diamond 4. So
they recollect that experience. That was
they're probably thinking, oh my god, is it gonna? Am I just gonna have to spend another 3 months, 4 months? Sitting here sweating my way through Emerald to Diamond again? Because again, people aren't going to be logical. People don't view the rank system as a meritocracy. No. People fail to understand that the rank system is just it's a manifestation of skill, right? It's like you're a Diamond 4 player skill-wise, you will get there. We forget that very, very easily, right? We think of it's all these other, these other kind of more esoteric things.
And what doesn't help it as well is because it's at the start of the season, you have such a low sample size of games. So you will see on your match history, or your OPGG, 20% win rate with this champion. So you've got the low rank and you've got the low win rates and you've got the negative win rate. That will just ruin people.
It completely.
Because people love win rate as well, right? That's really dictates how well they think they're performing in the season.
And we literally had people in some of our programs quit because they said, the new split completely exploded them. Charlie sent me a handful of people, I think two or three people that literally quit ranked.
They've given up. They
gave up that quickly. It was a week worth of games.
Done.
See you later. That was enough. And we saw a massive increase in toxicity, general frustration, lack of, lowered game satisfaction, everything across all layers. So this is my thing. This is my contention, Nathan. This is my main point here. League of Legends, many aspects of League. I want to echo a sentiment that Froxon said on this podcast. We don't want a balanced game because it's not as fun. It doesn't feel as fun. There are many aspects of the League of Legends experience that aren't necessarily logical, but are fun because, or we're comfortable with because they feel right. And I think when it comes to rank and the rank system, it is such an emotional, feel-based thing. It's not very logical that if you're finicking with, or you're editing, or you're doing something to impact this very, very contentious, this very emotionally intense part of the game,
which is your visible rank,
you need to be very careful. Extremely careful. And even if on paper it's better for the community, right? Even if arguably a hard MMR reset is probably long overdue.
Yeah, they literally said here the last line was, while this may feel like an immediate downgrade, if you end it at a rank and got a bit harsher of a placement, we think this is better than a player returning to ranked and getting smashed continuously in games or having allies resent them and they weren't at the right skill level for return to ranked win rates were around 45%.
Yeah, so like, let's say, for example, you would come back to the game and you get placed in this high elo bracket and then you get smashed by everyone and go down. That satisfaction of that journey rather than, being in a lower than you are and then working your way back up. But still, you know what I mean?
I think the other way around would be more fun in a way, right?
Potentially.
But this way's the other extreme, right?
So logically speaking, everything they did made sense.
Yeah.
So, I just think as well, Riot as a company, they need to be extremely careful moving forward when it comes to the feeling and the psychological and mental toll of the solo queue, specifically the solo queue experience. And so I think that the communication around this was absolutely piss poor. Yeah. Really, 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 really bad. Just think
I think
about
you have to be on Twitter to see this. Was this on Twitter? I think someone got this.
Yeah, someone sent this. I didn't even know where this was even from.
Yeah.
And to the point where, again, my ideas for this, what I think that my feedback is that this should have been plastered on the client. Or a warning should pop up when they click that play button. Warning, you may be experiencing a wider, more varied matchmaking. Warning, you're going to be... remember, Diamond 4 does not mean Diamond 4 this split, whatever. You know what I mean? Some sort of... At least some sort of direction. At least some sort of a forewarning or some sort of be careful, right? No, you're just throwing people into the deep end with crazy matchmaking, negative win rates on top of a new patch and a new meta.
It's a lot.
It's incredible amount of, a lot of things for people to intake. And so I really was disappointed, incredibly disappointed. Yeah. And I remember I was on, when I started the new split, I had this, shocking win rate. Even me.
Yeah, you were
it took a psychological...
I'm just going to be an emerald player. I was losing games in, Diamond 4, Diamond 3. And again, this is, because the other thing as well is consistency. This has never happened before.
No.
So if this is happening to me it's is something different this time?
Did I get way
exactly
worse?
Right.
I was questioning myself.
You're questioning yourself. It's everything about the game, is that just incorrect?
Am I just wrong? Am I just completely delusional?
And if I just had a little bit of a disclaimer or this was sent to me, I was cool. Yep, I should be expecting that. But
just think about that, Nathan. You and I.
Yeah,
we literally do this for a living. Yeah. We're second guessing ourselves. Yeah. Imagine what the average player experiences. I can't even fathom what they would have been going through mentally at the beginning of Split 3. Unbelievable. So look, okay, now we've covered a lot of negatives, positives, right? I do think a hard MMR reset was long overdue. I'm just going to speak for myself as a case study, right? Finishing Halo for many, many years, it didn't feel right for me to be grandfathered into the Master Plus rank. It doesn't feel right. I don't think it
really?
is.
Okay.
Every now and then, there should be some sort of a harder MMR reset. So now I'm going to... reference Nice for a second. He had some radical idea in one of his videos where he said everyone should start at Iron 4 0 every season, and obviously that's just ridiculous, right? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying everyone goes down to the bottom of the barrel. That's just ridiculous because then you're going to get Iron 4 players with Master Tier players. That's disgusting, right? That's not right. But what there does need to be is some sort of an adjustment. Maybe it's every 3 years, every 2 years. And the reason for this specifically, right, is because what it meant to be high elo 2 years ago or 3 years ago is not really what it means to be high elo now. And there's no guarantee that a player has consistently played throughout all those years. Maybe they've just they just played a few games here and there, and they've kept up their MMR somewhat, especially if they were really, really high elo. I don't really believe that they should be they should have to earn back that rank to a certain degree. And again, I'm not saying this needs to happen every year. Maybe it's every 2 years. Maybe it's every 3 years. I do think that's healthy for because the game's changing. The game is changing so much. The skills that you need to have, your understanding of the game needs to level up. Now, you may argue, won't the system do that anyway? Well, yes, theoretically, if that person were to play a series of games and they're not at that par, then they're going to drop down, right? But I think that you're probably going to increase the quality of the matchmaking for a lot of people. And, I think it's just a more efficient way. of increasing the quality of the matchmaking and the integrity of the rank system.
Yeah, it certainly would. And you could always as well with those accounts not play that much. And you can always get away with some lucky wins
you
here
can
and
get
there,
away,
right?
exactly right.
And then your MMR, maybe it reduces in a season like maybe 200 MMR, but now it's like, okay, you're really good to earn it back.
Really got to earn it back.
So I think it's an absolutely fantastic change.
It makes sense.
I think it makes sense. I mean, this first line here saying last season we observed that some of the higher tier ranks in particular were a bit too easy to achieve. So we made some adjustments to make these more appropriate.
And I do think like a lot of people I would prefer specifically the Apex tiers become more prestige.
So you're talking
rank,
about
right?
Master, Grandmaster.
So I would actually rather way more people in Diamond than the amount of people in Master tier.
I remember Diamond 1 being like, that's a really like, there's really good players.
Like
in
we
there.
were, this is going to sound weird, but back in the day, like say we're talking season 3, right? Season
well, there
two,
was
season
no
3.
Master.
There was no,
Grandmaster.
it went
just
from
Diamond 1 to Challenger.
Diamond 1 to Challenger, right? And so everyone, like a lot of good players, if you were Diamond 1, back then,
you were basically like an elite player.
You're very, very
top,
good player.
Yeah, you're a top, on a big serve, you're like top 500, top
But that was
1,000.
to the extreme, right? Because that what would happen in order to prevent people from getting to Challenger, you would get like 2 LP, 3 LP, 5
That's
LP.
right, exactly right.
Right, to keep you in the top of Diamond 1.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I want that sort of system, but I do think that reducing the amount of players in Master Tier and making Master Tier be a little bit more prestige in one of the... Because how many people were in Master Tier and like EU? Like some ridiculous.
20,000,
30,000.
Yeah.
Now, albeit it is a very big server, but how much cooler would that be if that was like top 1,000? Like Gate kept
That's
it like
right. It
top
should-
1,000,
yeah.
Grandmaster top 500, Challengers like top 200.
Yeah.
Like that would be like, I think having a cap on the Apex tiers would just give it such more respect.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which and again, maybe that's an elitist take. I don't know, but I think that would be healthier and make more sense. Because Apex tiers should be this unique thing where it has a certain amount of people in it. I like that idea, to be honest.
Also, as well, I would say the other benefit of this is that, the last couple of seasons, the LP has just gotten out of control for the top ranks. Like, Surdy was like 2,200 LP. Like, we've never seen these LPs before, by the way. That's like a world record. 2,000 LP was like with the Guru, and
they weren't happy with that, right? We're not happy with that.
Yeah, like think about what's happening with those people's MMR. Like a Guru on stream was like looters in his mind, really struggling through Diamond and stuff like that. But his MMR is so screwed. Like his matchmaking is going to be unbelievable compared to everyone else because it's out of this world, Like there's not many people that are like, there's 1,000 plus LP, and his matchmaking is gonna be all over the place. So
just think about what 2,000
broken.
LP is in general, right? 0 to 2,000. That is 20 divisions, right?
Well, each division.
So I'm thinking of 100, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking about 400. So
you're thinking about 400.
So that's 5. So that would be
5.
like silver, gold,
platinum,
emerald, diamond. So going from silver 4 to diamond 4.
Is that right?
Yeah,
silver,
it's 2,000 LP.
Wow.
And that's in the Apex tiers, right?
That's in the Apex tiers.
It's pretty crazy.
Just let that sink in for a second.
So I think it got a bit out of control, and I think this is going to really help reduce that. I think maybe the top ranks will only be like 1,200 LP or 1,000 LP and stuff like that. Because remember, like 1,000 LP used to be a really huge. Like the 1,000 LP club. I remember we were talking about 4 years ago, and now 1,000 LP was like, I think to get into Challenger was the.
But the reason
baseline.
for that, right, is because there was that bit of an elo, like the LP.
Yeah, they added the extra LP as well. Like, how they did the gains and stuff like that.
Yeah, they changed the LP gains.
It's sort of like the LP economy. They like printed money, They like inflated it all.
It's a tricky balance to find, isn't it? Because you don't want people... You want people to feel satisfied getting wins, because that's what they communicated, right? Was that people were taking too long to climb through divisions. But at the same time... You don't want too much LP because then you just kind of... It loses its...
the numbers get out of control.
Numbers get out of control.
Yeah.
Inflation, literally.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit of a tricky balance though to find. So, I think overall, just to summarize all this, again, the idea behind it on paper, there's some sense to it. I think if there was, from a communication perspective, if that was tightened up, I think people could have, been like, okay... I know this is going to be a different split. I can't expect to maybe get to the rank that I was going to get before. And now, sure,
adjust my expectations.
It still is going to have. There's going to be a lot of pain still, regardless.
Of course,
right? Because even if you click yes, I accept, it's going to be different. people are going, yeah, I'm going to get back to my rank. That's going to happen inevitably, right? But it would be a hell of a lot less, more bearable.
Maybe less people quit in the game.
Exactly right.
All right, Curtis. Our next topic here was a tweet from Ludwig.
Yeah.
Spark some conversation, Curtis.
So I sent this one to you. So I want to talk a little bit about. So this was a post that Ludwig did. So Ludwig is like a famous
YouTuber. He's on his League of Legends grind, and he's currently bronze.
Playing jungle.
Jungle.
And I was like, oh, this guy's playing jungle. I wonder what Nathan has to say about this. And there was a response here from Alias.
Go back to his tweet. So he tweets out, "This game is bullshit. I quit." Right, and he posts a loss streak. Right. I just want to quickly analyze this because this is fantastic. So he's lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row. And talking about some of his scores. So he's playing Amumu and Fiddlesticks, which is great. Amumu is such a fantastic champion to start playing, by the way, playing with. He is going after Shock Amumu. I would recommend Conqueror. That's in my recommended build. Both these champions are recommended, Amumu and Fiddlesticks, in the Jungle Academy.
Clear reference points.
Clear reference points. And, the scores we're talking about are like, 1 and 8. 3 and 7. He's died like 13 times, 11 times, 11 times, 13 times, 7 times, 8 times. So, and he's got, his CS numbers are, 4, basically 4 every game, 4.55 max, right? So you clearly, just taking every fight, probably not playing everyone, probably fighting with R all the time, end of review ganks, forcing, obviously not hitting his camp. So just the classic things that, you just need to start, practicing in bronze, right? And he, so that's a really interesting match history there. And he says he's quitting the game. I don't know if he actually did quit. It got 23,000 likes. I don't even want to read the other comments to this one. No. But you highlighted this tweet here from Alias here.
Yeah, so the response here, I wanted to get your take on this from a jungler's perspective, Nathan.
Yeah.
So the tweet from LS reads, focus on 10 CS per minute as the singular most important thing. Yes, it's not achievable easily on jungle, and treat the game as a single-player game with random, newly generated NPCs of varying skills and talents each game, which it really kind of is in below Elite MMR. Also, you're playing literally the 2 best junglers for what you're trying to do, so don't drop them and keep going. Also, don't buy control wards. In your journey to plat, you'll learn a lot of different things, and understanding of vision isn't something that you or your teammates are going to really get. It's just burning gold for nothing.
Yep. The control wards, I give that advice a lot, by the way. I don't want to see people's controls in your inventory if you're iron, silver, bronze, whatever. Like, maybe on like one Baron fight or whatever, or like that Dragon Soul fight, but the first 20 minutes, don't waste your gold. So let's talk about the focus on the 10 CS per minute. It's just like and this is not just an LS thing. People love this. People like this. So a lot of people agree with this sentiment.
Yeah, so this feedback got 4,800 likes.
Telling a bronze player to get 10 CS per minute. So Ludwig actually responded saying 10 CS per minute is insane. How is that even possible? And it is generally not possible for a bronze player with their skill level or iron to even get or even perception, like what that looks like, what that feels like. So what 10 CS per minute really looks like, right? These are the fundamentals and things that you can actually break down to even get to a realm where you can even have the opportunity to get 10 CS per minute. You are going to have to know exactly what good ganks and bad ganks are, right? You're not going to compensate for any one of your teammates' plays. How hard is that to do as a bronze and an iron player? You're just running around and you see someone pushed up. You're like, oh, I'm just going to gank them. But there's so many more factors that go into a gank. Taking 10 CS per minute is also not possible as a jungler unless you take side lane farm or counter jungle, especially in the mid game. And again, these are
advanced.
What are some questions that you're going to go about? When do I counter jungle? When do I take my teammate's side lane farm? There's a lot of grouping and fighting and chaos. So, with anything, there's always so much you can do giving people advice with text unless seeing their gameplay. But yeah, the focus on 10 CS per minute advice is literally completely almost useless without breaking down the first aspects of like, okay, let's break down what a good gank and bad gank is. Let's play around our R cooldown. Let's be comfortable letting our teammates die. But I sort of guess what maybe Alice is trying to say here is that League's a game of experience and gold, but I probably wouldn't use the dramatic of 10 CS per minute.
Yeah, so I have been asked time and time again, a lot actually recently in my Discord about this LS, and I want to talk about this feedback, and I want to talk about LS as well, because I get asked questions about LS. So this feedback in my mind is not only just wrong, it's literally just it's so bad that it's ridiculous in my eyes. It is a complete and utter misunderstanding of low elo. And I would understand if this advice was given 10 years ago. The fact that the whole topic or the whole advice of just farm 10 CS per minute, it's so detached from reality, it is mind-boggling to me. So this advice from LS, giving farming 10 CS per minute, is one of his most common pieces. He has a short that he had recently that I got sent. Curtis, how good is this advice? It was a response. How do I win games and blah blah blah. And then you got to farm 10 CS per minute as a laner. It was about mid lane or top lane or something like that. And I want to use an analogy or a metaphor to describe the way I interpret 10 CS per minute as an advice. Farm 10 CS per minute. That's like saying, just go cook a Michelin star meal. Just do that. Why don't just do that? So someone asks a question, what should I cook my partner for dinner tonight? Why don't you just cook this black truffle lobster thing from Gordon Ramsay?
People might think that's an extreme example, but it literally is that example. 10 CS per minute is like beautiful, almost perfectly legends.
Okay, let me put it in perspective. 10 CS per minute, right? In order to get 10 CS per minute.
This is, again, of a jungler as well, by the way.
As a jungler, it's not even, it's just a meme, right? It's just not even, it's just not even talking about it. It's just so incorrect. It's unbelievable. For a laner, it's even hard, right? Let alone a laner. To farm 10 CS per minute, right? You would have to have beautiful wave management. You'd have to know your matchups. You would have to have beautiful resets. You would have to know how to use your TP well. You would have to know when to say no to plays. You would have to know how to shove side waves out properly. You would have to learn to fix lane assignments. You would have to have good quality threat assessment because if you die, you're not going to get farm 10 CS per minute. You would have to basically be an elite level player who's smurfing way above their pay grade to get 10 CS per minute.
At the essence, really, the summary is 10 CS per minute is purely a byproduct of
everything. It's like saying just be a pro level league player.
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret that. Be a pro level league player. Just do that. Go to Faker and just copy Faker. But it's not only bad advice, Nathan. It's literally
I see what you're saying.
Unhelpful.
You think it's just absolutely unhelpful.
Because what you're doing, when the average player, right, who really respects LS, and let's say they're a bronze player or a silver player or a gold player or a platinum player, and they hear that advice, just farm TSS per minute, what they're going to do, this is literally what they do, I've seen it. They ignore everything.
Yeah. And from a jungler's perspective, they will just literally be on their camp spot and just be an AFK the whole
even
game.
A laner. Yeah. They're just not going to do any, they're not going to move to any plays.
There's free opportunities everywhere.
They're literally missing beautiful opportunities to play 2v2s or solo kill their lane or whatever the hell it might be. They're just going to tunnel vision on hitting minions. They're not going to win trades. And I've seen it. I've literally seen it. I'm just going to speak from my experience because I've had LS fanboys come into my program. I literally had someone called LS fanboy or something, right? It was his name. Or something. It was like LS fan or something.
Yeah. And
he would play Annie, following LS advice, which is also terrible advice. Do not play Annie. No one play Annie. I can explain why in a moment. And they don't know how to trade. They don't know how to play the game of League of Legends because they're so hell-bent on farming that everything else is completely exploding.
And their view of the game just becomes
distorted. Their view of the game becomes super distorted.
I could imagine those players being really hard to coach.
Very, very, very hard to coach. And I had to work for literally years with this client, this LS fanboy. His name was his name, whatever. I won't say his actual name. And it took me years to undo his habits. Years. He was so messed up, his view of the game. Now, I'm not saying that's every single person that LS, who's a fan of LS, but I'm just saying that this advice is not only wrong, it's straight up unhelpful. It's literally unhelpful. And so I think that, and this is the interesting thing. I want to expand this out a little bit more just to LS. LS is an incredibly smart individual. Very, very smart with
Thinks about the game really deeply, draft, creative picks, items.
LS has takes on the game that are that are innovative, that are groundbreaking, that are, that are, to be honest, ahead of his time. He talks about concepts that are literally ahead of his time. The way he thinks about compositions, the way he views the game is very unique. Certain things. But then there's other things that he says that I believe that are completely off the beaten path, not based in reality, completely wrong.
I would say he struggles a lot with the lower, just
the lower elo.
The classic high elo.
He's in my eyes a high elo coach.
Yeah, and a pro team.
He's a pro team coach, exactly right.
And they're really two different things, guys. They really are.
I think LS as well is a classic example of someone that is very smart, but is also can't teach. So so people got to realize, and this is why pro players a lot of the time aren't great coaches, because they've played the game at a high level for so long and worked with so many elite players that they can't actually resonate. They can't empathize with what it's like to be at a low level at a game, because they've been such a good gamer for so long. Yeah. And I was in that it literally took me years.
That's what, when we came out of pro,
that was the exact same.
And we had to reverse engineer what we knew. We didn't realize how much we knew about the game, how much we did intuitively, that we had to break down completely.
So what LS means well with this feedback, right?
Of course.
But in his mind, he hasn't developed the skill of being able to empathize and understand and really deconstruct what it means to be low elo. So he has these very generic concepts that he's like lived by for years, and he's repeated them over and over and over again, and he hasn't updated his hypothesis, but the game has changed. And so I think people have also realized that this is just not good advice. So again, I think LS is one of those very, he's very unique characters where very rarely I see someone that is so right about some things and so ahead of his time and so genius, but then also so incredibly wrong about certain things. It's like Dopa in a way. I think Dopa is completely fucking in la la land when it comes to certain things, but he's really, really smart when it comes to other things. Yeah. And then when people say, well, what is my take on LS? Like, what do I think of him as? And I'm like, I've never spoken to LS. I've tried to reach out to him. He doesn't reply to anything I say. He's been critical of me, even though he's never had a conversation with me. He actually doesn't assume that I exist. Whenever anyone asks, he literally ignores it.
That's
so I'm not in his worldview, apparently.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I do respect LS. I think he's given a lot to the community. But Absolutely. I think it's really awkward to talk about LS because, again, I agree heavily, and I think he does have a lot of amazing concepts. I'll give you, and then there's another thing about LS that I will say. And I'm not saying I don't want this to be targeting LS. I think a lot of coaches are guilty of this. He says things with so much conviction that you can't disagree with him. So I got sent one of his recent coaching sessions with Reynad, who was a StarCraft pro. And in this review, because I'm a mid lane coach and I would argue that I'm one of the best in the world. And he was coaching this Syndra player. And he said something that was so wrong. He said something like, you can't use your abilities here because you're going to go You don't go Syndra because your passive gives you back mana. And he was like, you have to base here. I'm like, no, you don't. There's no way in a million years you have to base here. But the way LS said it, and the way, and from the general public, if you're not equally knowledgeable as LS, or you don't understand the game very well, what happens is that because the way he speaks is with so much conviction that there's no room for disagreement. It's almost as if like he crystallizes everything he says. So there's no room for like disagreement in a way. And I almost feel like that's LS's biggest flaw, is that I feel like my feedback to LS is that the reason I feel like he struggles to adapt and evolve with the game and update his concepts is because he's so passionate about his particular view of the game. He crystallizes his view, and so he has no room for growth. And so I think that like when people watch LS, people think, oh my God, this guy's the second coming of Jesus. This guy's the smartest guy I've ever heard. But where you got to be careful, and where with LS's content, yes, he does say things that are correct, but he also says things that are completely incorrect, but he says them with the exact same level of conviction. There's not like, I'm kind of unsure about this. No, it's like everything is I'm 100% sure type thing. That's the vibe I get from LS. So it's very hard for people. That's why people kind of fall for that, the church of LS and the church of whatever, the Leandries, whatever his whole thing, his spiel is, that I feel like there's not much room for disagreement. And then if you disagree with LS, you have to be wrong, because he said these things with so much conviction. He's the second coming of Jesus. So there's no room for actual disagreement. And that's how I felt when it comes to LS. So either you see through that facade, you're someone that actually understands the game, and you see through that facade of what he's actually saying sounds smart, but it's actually bullshit. Like the way he speaks about 10 CS a minute on his shorts, and like I've been watching his shorts recently. He says it with so much confidence. I've never heard someone say such bad advice with so much confidence. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, you're literally giving the not only incorrect advice, but literally sabotaging advice, but in such a confident manner. So for me, it's like, as a coach, if I didn't absolutely know what I'm saying, I literally say to clients, I don't know. I get asked all the time. Shit, I don't. I'm like, look, I'll be honest, I don't really know. You should probably talk to that guy. But as a coach, I feel like we have a responsibility to say that we don't know. Because the cost of someone who trusts our opinion, they're just going to blindly follow what we say. We are in a position of authority as coaches. If we make YouTube content, there's people who listen to this podcast that really, really respect our opinion.
Not just that, but we're also, people pay us money. We're liable to get people results as well, right? Like, that's another thing.
Exactly right. I don't want to. I would rather.
That me saying that you're not going to get it, or you're going to go down the wrong path. I'll just say I don't know, and that's going to be more beneficial to you.
Like, we would rather sound like sometimes less intelligent, or like maybe we don't know as much, or we don't sound as confident because we're willing to say that we don't maybe know something that well. But I would rather do that because the reality is I'm not going to know everything, every little single thing about the game. It's not unfit. And there are people that know more about particular things about the game than me. But we're not afraid to say that because we understand that that's what's going to get them results. But then the problem, though, from the outside is that people assume that because we're saying that we don't know maybe about something, that we're less confident, we're less competent. So then we don't have the same sort of, it's like, it I guess, bites us in the ass, I guess, from a marketing or from an influence perspective. So that's my whole spiel on LS. I think it's quite complicated.
One other thing that LS and also other high elo coaches don't really think too much of, what we really explore in this podcast and why people come to our podcast as a niche podcast, is the stage 4 issues and all the invisible things that you don't realize is going on in the minds of lower ranked or new players, because it's just about the game with the high, because that's what it really is.
That's what it is for high elo.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they obviously will still have their psychological, things that draw them back, or narratives that they have, of course, right? But in terms of like, the improvement, it's like little 1% adjustments for them. But, it might just be like a 30%er for like a silver player that just, for some reason, just completely mentally checks out lane in against a Cassidy and starts losing the lane.
And that's from people that I know that have worked with LS at a pro level. That's their criticism. The criticism with LS isn't like he has some good ideas, but he doesn't have any perception.
It's like a psychological
aspect of the game, because he's only talking about the game. He doesn't understand. He's not recognizing that there is a whole layer of stage 4, which is a huge part of League of Legends because it's a mental game.
Yes.
Right. So look, I think that, again, just to summarize, I think that there's some good stuff here, but specifically with the 10 CS minute, it just drives me insane.
Yeah. It's 10 CS per minute. It's the end goal. It's not the advice.
It's not even a goal. It's not even a goal.
No, it's not.
Straight up, it's actually should be deleted from the whole vernacular of League of Legends.
You're right.
I've never came into a game where I'm gonna get 10 CS minute. Even at the highest level, you don't look at Chovy doesn't come into the game with a focus on Faker doesn't come into the game with a focus on 10 CS per minute. They're thinking, how do I take good quality trades?
It's how
do I win the
decision.
Game?
Yeah.
How do I win the fucking game? What's my role in this game? What's the win condition? Where do I need to be and why? Yeah, no shit. We want to be efficient. We don't want to miss minions. That's a given. You don't need to state that. That's like saying, oh, you don't forget to breathe. It's like, well, no shit. I got to breathe. That's like, of course, if I want to be a human, I got to breathe. In League, that is the foundation of the game, is to hit minions and get gold, right? And so as a high-level player, you already intuitively understand that you need to be hyper-efficient and be careful with your side lane management and make sure you get your cannons and your last hits. Now, it's not like anyone doesn't want more farm. Everyone at the high level you don't watch a single high-level player that doesn't get good quality farm because they don't get there anyway, right? The difference maker is there's a lot of difference makers in high elo. The quality of their skirmishing. How good are they at their trading in lane, their micro in lane, their spacing, their mental stack, their threat assessment, their ability to, do all these things at the same time. It's not 10 CS per minute is playing the game of League of Legends at the absolute highest level with a freed up mental stack, developed mental stack, having every other box ticked. That's why it's useless. That's why it's a completely futile concept.
You can have 10 CS per minute and be a high impact player, make every decision's beautiful, and you can be a 10 cents per minute, and you can be a complete bot and AFK.
Exactly.
Those
right.
things exist. They can.
They
be
coexist. Exactly right. Exactly right. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any
You don't
sense.
go into the game thinking about that. You're right. It should be a deleted term.
Deleted term. It can that term could be removed tomorrow, and not a single person would miss it.
It's like when we talk about KDA, Curtis. And like. You know how we talk about we end games and we don't even realize what our scoreline was.
I have no idea. To the point, I don't even know what the scoreline is in the game in terms of kills. I don't even look at that. I just look at who's fed, who's weak.
Items, gold.
Yeah. Does this person does the owner have Bork yet?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was playing a Rek'Sai game yesterday, dude, and we were like losing the whole time. I just wasn't dying because I was just chaos was happening around, and then I just ended the game like 11-3, and it didn't feel like I was 11-3 the whole time because also their comp was also good into me, right? So it was it's the same thing like that. It's just a byproduct.
It's a byproduct,
and I never would be like, I'm gonna get 11 kills this game. It's literally just making this good decision. Oh, we'll get a kill there. This decision. To protect this lane here.
That's my point. It's an outdated concept, and I think that as of 2024, where we're at is that coaching and the game has just got a lot more solved. What I mean by solved is that the teaching of the concepts. So, I'll give you an example, right? I could have told you 5 years ago that it was bad to die to a gank. But now, if I look at someone, why they die to someone dying to a gank, I could literally break down exactly why they've died to that gank, where their mental energy was focused, like the whole concept of the mental stack, breaking down where the retention was, why this particular concept was occupying their mental stack. I could speak for 30 minutes on literally this death, why they died, how they could improve at every single aspect of that death, and what should they prioritize based off where they're at in their journey.
And there's more levels to that as well. You got the value of the gank. It's like, how much resources did you burn? What did the enemy jungler? What did your jungler get?
That is where we're at now. That is 2024 coaching, the highest level of coaching right now that we've evolved for years and years and years. It isn't these basic generic things. It's the execution of this. How do you actually get better at this stuff? Because anyone can say, don't die, farm 10 CS a minute, track the jungle and dodge every skill shot. Anyone can say that. Where's the value? That's my point.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents. If anyone, I get asked that question a lot.
There you go, Curtis. People, you can just link people to that section
link people
right
to
now,
that.
Curtis.
Exactly right.
It's finally been
and
done.
you know what? I would love to speak to LS.
Okay.
Someone
That's an invitation then, Curtis.
Yes, I want LS to come onto this podcast, or even me just do an episode with LS and just talking about the game. I would love to talk and have an actual productive conversation about what we agree on, what we don't agree upon, what is the game of League of Legends, like what is the game of League, and this is where we're probably going to agree on a hell of a lot of things, and we're probably going to disagree on a hell of a lot of things, but I just don't see that happening. But I would love for it to happen.
Where would you start? What would be the first question that you would want to explore?
I think the best way to go about it would actually just be like looking at gameplay together.
Yeah, I will just get a VOD up. And then that
break down a gameplay.
And that will lead to other...
Yes.
You go down rabbit holes when you go...
We'll like load up a bunch of VODs of like different ELO brackets. We just break down VODs and then, what would you say here? And this is what I would say. This is what would you say? And, and we just go, and maybe we look at his gameplay and he looks at my gameplay and we just go, shit like that. Like just the game, like let's just talk about the game, nothing that's esoteric, nothing that's bigger picture.
No.
Just literally show us the game and let's get into the specifics.
Yeah. And remember, we're not just going to be talking about, you wouldn't just be talking about the game. It'll be the psychological aspects, what's happening in front of us in the screen.
Yes, I would love to psychoanalyze LS's gameplay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why you're making those decisions.
And also see how he would review his own gameplay.
Yeah, how does he review his own game? What does he say about his own mistakes?
Yeah.
That's what I would love to get into.
That's fun.
Again, I don't see it happening, but I would love for that to happen.
Yeah.
I think that would make some of the most valuable, educational, and probably most interesting League of Legends content.
Well, I don't know. You record guides with Mysterious and Tim and stuff like that. Like I've recorded guides with Perry, and we would do like review, like because sometimes you do like a clip or a mid-game sequence, like in our guides for like Udyr, for example, do like a 15-minute mid-game sequence, and we'll go on tangents, but we sometimes look over the gameplay, and like Perry will be like, why am I doing this? And like you see, like because you review it you thought that you were uploading the clip, it was great, and there's still really good learnings, but you're like, oh shit, I
Yeah,
can
that happens all the
optimize
time.
this a bit more and stuff,
Yeah.
and you have that conversation. It's really fun, and you actually realize how much you could even be improving yourself as well, even though it's guide material, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
So it does work, the bouncing back and forth between players that are
Especially when there's
very
gameplay in
knowledgeable.
front of you.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that's the glue.
That
you
is
know?
the glue, yeah. It has to start from that.
I'm very open to that.
All right, Curtis, our next topic here was another one of yours, live
Coaching.
coaching.
So I know, Nathan, you've done a hell of a lot of
did
live coaching.
Shitload. I did 3 months of it, 4 months of it from in last year, yeah.
You've done a lot of it. And look, I thought we had already covered it,
Yeah.
but I got asked to revisit this based off of Nicholas's experiences with live coaching. Okay, so basically his contention with live coaching was that the benefit of it, so he worked with Lena and he was there, you know, basically, yeah, live coaching as per usual.
What rank is Lena?
I believe silver.
So Nicholas was live coaching a silver player.
Yep.
In mid lane.
Yep. And so what Nicholas said is he said that what live coaching did for Lena was essentially allow for a connection or a feeling of a concept that she, whether or not she would have done that on her own, I don't know, right? But let's just say for the sake of this, it helped her make a connection with a concept. So in that concept specifically was the feeling of placing, like getting a ward out and like leaning to a ward, right? And so what he said, his contention was, Curtis, I think live coaching is slept on because in this review I did with Lena, I told her to ward. She's been struggling with warding. She got the ward out and she felt the power of how, like literally felt the power of the ward in the game. And because once you then feel the concept, once you can make that mind muscle connection between the concept, that actually makes it easier for them to then further that learning on their own. Now, okay, before I talk about what my opinion is on this, what are your experiences with this sort of, I guess, making a connection with a particular topic? Is this something you thought about?
Yeah, the biggest benefit that I found when I did that whole live coaching spree every day for like 3 hours each day was showing people what it felt like to play high intensity jungling and close out games was actually what I found was the most, like, people were like, wow, like you're like ahead and this game looks easy, but you make it feel like people would finish the live coaching, you know, they'll be like 10-0, but they felt like they were like behind the whole game because of how much I'm like speed, decision making, what's next, reset item, when usually they'll get ahead and be like, la-di-da-di-da, I'm just going to go for fight. But getting people to feel what it's like to play high quality, disciplined League of Legends and close out a game cleanly. Now, the hard thing about live coaching that I found is that some games, it's a bit hard to get in. Like, there's only a couple of games I would get per, maybe like, you know, I'll do maybe 6 in a session. One game, maybe, I'll have like this one where I could actually demonstrate that feeling to someone because there's just too much like chaos and it's hard to like live coach the chaos, but sometimes everything sort of just clicks. Yeah, I think that's the biggest one is that getting people to feel what it's like to play high intensity jungling. Yeah,
and I think that is a definite benefit, right? I think I agree. Like, I think, you know, some of your clients, I remember one of your clients said that did the live coaching. I saw a comment saying, when we were not doing the live coaching together, I still had Nathan's voice in my head saying, what's next? Like reset and like tempo, right? So that is an added benefit. I get that. And I resonate with what Nicholas said. But I want to say the counter to this. So I would say that's objectively true. Right, there is a huge benefit, and that's creating that muscle memory and the feeling of concepts. The downside, though, right, is that if the client is becoming reliant on you to make that connection, you're further reiterating the idea that they're not going to be able to do that. Like if they need someone else to have that learning to make that learning happen for them, then they're not going to progress in the league journey anyway.
That's right, because they need to problem solve themselves.
Because there is so many things that you're going to have to learn on your journey, right? Warding is one of them. You know, high intensity, closing out a game is one of them. There is going to have to be hundreds upon hundreds of connections that you're going to have to make over your league journey. That if you don't know how to do that on your own, you're screwed. So the way I view it is that the actual process of figuring out how to learn in League of Legends, even if it takes you longer, even if in the short term you get less results, is better than the actual act of the live coaching itself. Because Lena, right, in the case of Lena's example, sure, great, thumbs up. She might get more LP because now she's felt what it's like to get the ward down. But what happens when Necklace isn't there? You've got all these other concepts you've got to learn. Are you capable of making that connection by yourself? Well, I don't know. You haven't done it, right? That's my point. My point that live coaching is good in the sense that it is a buff, but it's just a temporary buff. In order to make live coaching viable, you would have to have live coaching all the time, like in all your blocks. You have to have someone looking over all your games because the learning has to be done in every game of every block every day for weeks and months and years for you to actually progress in League of Legends. So if you don't have that guy helping you make that connection, then realistically, and you can't make that connection yourself, you're never going to climb anyway. And that, I think, is Lena's problem. Lena has been this, and I'm not using this, I'm just using Lena as a case study. I think there's many people like that. You see many people who stay at the same rank for years and years and years. The reason for that is that, one of the reasons for that, I contend, is that they don't know how to learn concepts in League.
That's right.
And so you having the learning for them, I don't really feel live coaching is you're just giving them the answer.
Yeah, so it's giving them the answer, yeah.
That's my point.
It's like giving them the answer with the hope that they'll be able to like pick that up on like another game, you know?
Yeah.
They like creates a little connection of like, oh, I could do this. Like, for example, I mean, again, this is where we sort of concluded with the live coaching that it was way more effective with jungle because there's specific patterns that you can like pick up on. Like, for example, like let's say the most common one where a really big learning would be the enemy jungler level 3 ganks. And I tell the person, what we're going to do is we're not going to run into these jungle and take the camp. We're going to get level 4 and then we're going to test them on the camp, right? That's like a mind-boggling thing for people because they always like, oh, I got to go take away his camps and run away. It's like, let's get level 4, be a level ahead and fight. Like that's big 10, 20%ers, you know? So for jungle, I think, and they're like, okay, this is not gankable for these reasons. We can just quickly do that, you know? So, yeah, that's where we sort of concluded that jungling we think is way easier.
It's way easier, yeah. Because I view mid as more like, there's so many different scenarios.
There is, yeah. You don't have those like...
You don't have those like big 10, 20% is like I think you do in jungle.
Yeah, it's literally like, well, this is not gankable for these factors. It's so replicable, right? Obviously, there's lots of there is still lots of variations of it. It's like different champions make things gankable, you know, depending on the champion you're playing, that sort of stuff. But there's those big chunks.
So I guess to summarize that, it's like, yes, live coaching has value.
100%.
It has value. But at the same time, I do think it takes away from that experience and like the actual...
When I think about the review sessions that we do in our programs and stuff, that's just like a safe space, very clean. We can talk about, discuss. It's just the way to do it. If you want proper coaching... You get reviews, you talk about it, let's break it down. That's our safe space.
Exactly.
And it works. We've got results for so many clients over the years, right? We know it works. It's a proven model. But live coaching,
has its challenges.
Yeah.
All right, move on to
Skool post. So our Skool post of the week here is from Landon. The title of this one is "What is Champion Identity?" On the BBC podcast, there is something mentioned, and that is knowing your champion's identity. How do you know if you truly understand your champion correctly? There is no list that I know of that tells me what the identity of a champion is and what they want to do. Why play many games with a champion just to find out that how they want to play a game is different from how I want to play it? The core of this is how have you learned all the champions? Do you have to play all the champions that understand or merely playing the game for years, you will pick this up. Thank you for your time, you wonderful community folks. So firstly, sort of advertising our programs, Curtis, we literally have champion identity sections for all of our champion guides for our recommended champions for up to Emerald in our Academy program. So there you go. That will, solve your solution there if you want to pay for it. In terms of like how we come up with it, Curtis, our process, it's, a lot of trial and error. It's understanding that every champion has strengths and weaknesses and breaking down sort of like each ability, I guess, in a way.
I think I did a response similar to a question which was about kind of like, how do you understand the power curve of a champion?
Sort of similar.
And what I said was that you basically go in and you feel the champion and you try a bunch of stuff. And then you assess, okay, well, what works and what felt good and what felt bad. It's like, oh, feels really good when I get to this level or that item, or it feels really good when I'm in these scenarios, and it feels not good when I'm in the. And so what happens is that then you use that feeling stuff, you break down the feeling and combine that with logic or reasoning based off what their kit does and what the archetype of the champion is. And then you can pretty easily create some sort of very baseline champ identity. And one thing I will say when it comes to this whole champ identity thing, guys, is that the more experienced you become with the game, the more patterns and trends you'll see. And so
you can copy and paste things from one champ to the other champion.
It's like there's archetypes in the game, right?
Yeah.
So when a champion gets released, you know, I look at it, you look at a kit, it has mobility or no mobility. Is it melee or range? Is it squishy? Does it build tank items or damage items? Like you can very quickly, just with those three questions, give pretty clear. It's like, they
let's think about like a Kiana versus her Huawei, right? So
there's the kits, you mean?
Yeah, as the kit. So just like looking at the abilities, you would instantly think, okay, well, Huawei has no dashes, but like you look at all their abilities, like long range and like do a lot of damage.
A lot of AoE.
A lot of AoE. So you think, okay, you could automatically put some champ identity if you were to write like a guide or a course or something. Mid-game reference points. You want to play from range and you want to play sort of front to back and, you know, poke and stuff. And if you were to look at Kiana's abilities, you see, okay, you know, you have
a lot of dashes.
Slippery. You have big burst abilities. You have some CC abilities. You're looking to like just quickly get a pick, but you sort of have like long-ish
Kiana's like probably not the great example there. Like I would probably compare it more with Fizz.
Yeah, Fizz or Talon. Like champions,
Fizz, you have no range,
and champions with like bigger cooldowns where it's like you're in, and it's just like one.
Kiana's
combo
like
and
a very
it.
unique assassin.
Yeah, that's a bad example.
But Fizz, yeah. So yeah, okay. So like the way
it's like the length of cooldowns, what your abilities are doing.
So imagine you have like again archetypes of any like classic game. You're like a warrior, a ranger, a mage, an assassin type thing, right? Like any like Dungeons and Dragons type thing. And so most champions will fit pretty neatly into some sort of subcategory or some category. But then you have subcategories, and then there are champions that are a little bit more complicated and are the combinations of multiple. Right, of multiple ones, like you have Yone, and it's like an assassin and fighter type thing. Yeah. You know, it's a bit weird, and you have some.
Bride's like the same. Bride's like an assassin. You play with assassin, but then you can also do a fighter, like team fights, buy time for people and stuff. It's weird.
Yeah, there are some weird ones, right? So, but yes, for the most part, they can kind of somewhat fit into some high level categories. But again, as you get more experience with the game, you'll start to notice trends. It's like, oh, this one. So the way I'm just going to speak very transparently here. If I learn a new champion, what I do is like, oh, this is like this champion and that champion. That's what I do.
You like reference point it.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, Aurora came out. I'm like, oh, this kind of feels like Ari, but then but kind of like this ability feels like Echo's ability, and this ability, you know, I'm like using different reference points from different champions. So once you build that base up of like baseline knowledge, and it gets easier over time. Let's say you've only played 10 champions, right? Even playing 10 champions will give you a clear idea. If you've played Malzahar before, and you've played like Annie, and you played like Oriana, you played a bunch of these mages, and then you played, let's say, you picked up Victor for the first time. Like, oh, this ability is kind of like Oriana's ability. And this one's kind of like that champion's ability. You'll kind of like have reference points. And the more sophisticated your base becomes, it's just another one of those. Most abilities in League aren't overly unique. Like, think about Aurora's passive, right? There's so many champions with that passive, like with the 3-stack one. Like, you have like Akshan, you have a Vayne. There's so many champions that have some sort of like a 3-stack passive type thing.
Also, as well, playing against the champions, like this is an important part of your learning process. It's like, why did, like, let's say the Akali, why was she able to get a pentakill on that fight or clean up? It's like, you can start thinking, oh, well, then you can break it down. Like, she had a really good flank, or like the fight, you know, started away, or there was just all these squishy champs in the game. There's no tanks.
That is actually a really great way to view it as well. Just very simply, when you play well, what happened in that game?
Yeah. Like, all your teammates play well, or the enemy team plays well.
Yeah, any of them. And then if you're in a shitty, it feels bad. If you feel like very stressed, or you feel like what's going on. This is a complete tangent, but I promise it ties in. I had a question someone sent me today, which was interesting. It said, Curtis, how do you like Like you were quite feel oriented when you were younger, and he's like, how do you become more logical about the game? Like, how do you develop your curiosity about the game and stuff like that? And I was like reflecting on the train heading to yours, Nathan, and I remember one of the things that really prevented me from taking my gameplay to the next level was that I kind of just accepted how I felt in the game. So, for example, I have vivid memories playing like Zerath into like Zed in like season 4 or whatever it was. And I would feel incredibly stifled and incredibly frustrated. And I'd be in scenarios in the game that would feel so bad. But I just accepted it. I'm like, oh, that's just the way the game is. That's just it. Like I just don't get this farm. I'm under threat 24/7 and blah 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 blah.
You just had all these like rigid things, like narratives, and you just accepted that's the way it is.
I just accepted
You didn't try
it.
and problem solve it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then as I've got more experience in League, what I've realized is that those feelings of like anxiety and like, you know, you feel stifled, you feel like you're completely powerless, or you feel super threatened 24/7. You need to. That's not normal, right? That is not normal. The way you want to frame it is, if I feel like that, there's probably something going wrong under the hood here. I need to investigate. Or if I feel like everything feels really good this game, why? And you'll start to realize patterns. Oh, yeah, because I have no engage. Or I'm sole AP. Or I was the waves in these sort of locations. Or I was able to get this reset for this item. And you'll start to see patterns. And then from there, you can start to dissect, again, your champ's identity. And things become more replicable, because that's the ultimate goal, is to start at a high level with intuition and feel, and then make sense of that intuition and feel to develop some sort of reference points, and principles that you can follow. And that's if you can follow that process, you're golden, right? You're going to be chilling throughout your League journey.
Cool. I have nothing more to add, Curtis. Ready for mailbag time?
Yep.
Away we go. Alrighty then. Our first question here comes from Tomas. The title of this email is League for Me a Big Dilemma? This is a question we explore a lot on the podcast, Curtis. Having a conversation, is League the right game for you, is important. Hello, Nathan and Curtis. I've been playing League since 2020 and have listened to the podcast for over a year now. I've also been a member of the Skool community since its first week. I found really nice people and welcoming community in the BBC universe. It's one of the only places on the internet where I feel I can just be myself, and thank you both for making it a reality. I'm writing this for everyone to hear it because I think I have reached a turning point in my League journey, a point where I will have to make a difficult choice. But first, I'll tell you a short version of my story. For me, playing League has always been a social activity. During the pandemic, I got into the game because of a family member, and later made some friends that are now some of my closest. I even lived with one of them. For around 3 years, we played almost exclusively for fun, just chatting about RL stuff in game and laughing a lot. I never played solo queue in that time, in part because I didn't want to try hard. I just wanted to have fun time with other people. The other reason that drove me away from ranked was ranked anxiety. I just felt there was too much pressure on me since League is the only competitive game that I had played. But as time went on, I started getting more and more tempted to try ranked and climb. My friends played solo queue when they were on their own, and seeing them reach ranks like Emerald Diamond was very motivating. We even had a short time where we played Flex and I reached gold. But to be honest, it didn't feel deserved because in my mind, most of the heavy lifting was done by my friends since I played support at the time. When I found the BBC podcast in September of 2023, the idea to play by myself to get better only grew stronger. A few weeks later, I finally gathered enough courage to give it a shot, and that's where my League journey started going downhill. For the last year, I've tried to play solo queue seriously in many occasions, but I feel that I'm just incapable of doing so. The cycle goes like this. I get motivated to play ranked, so I play some games, and I'm okay for a few days until I have some bad streak or even a single bad loss, get angry at myself for playing poorly, tilt, and leave it for weeks. To be completely transparent, my account has a total of 27 solo queue games. Since I can't keep playing for more than a week, I also can't bring myself to play 3 games per session, so I only do 1 to 2. Most of the time, I still stick to normals like I did with my friends, but I eventually get the feeling that I'm not getting anywhere. Also, add into this that nowadays I cannot play with my friends nearly as much as I used to, so I want to play League. So if I want to play League, it has to be on my own. For me, the experience of playing alone is a 180-degree turn from playing with my friends. I usually play a lot worse because one, tend to overthink and overcomplicate stuff way too much since my mind is focused on only on the game. And two, my friends who are way higher ranked than me are not there to tell me where to be on the map, so I struggle a lot to make macro decisions. So if the experience in general is quite worse, why not quit or play only with other people? There are two main reasons. One is because no matter what I do or try, I can't get the idea that I want to get better out of my mind. If it got even bigger now, I want to face my demons and not be toxic with myself. I want to be able to control my emotions after a tough loss and have realistic expectations of my level of play. I want to prove that the BBC process and mentality can work for everyone. The second reason is that there are things that I just love about this game. My favorite thing to do in League is to run around the map killing people as Evelyn. I enjoy her gameplay a lot, and there is no other game that can bring that same feeling. I'm also an esports fan, and one of my dreams is to attend Worlds Finals one day. Those and more cool things about League keep me interested and motivate me to play. So to wrap it up, my dilemma is the following. I love to play ranked and climb to something like gold to plat, even if it's not that crazy of a goal, just to prove myself that I can do it. But every time I get enough motivation to play, I end up not enjoying it very much or straight up having a bad time. I feel that there are things about me as a player that are fundamentally wrong or broken because I learned the game from a different perspective, and now my narratives and habits have become too big for me to handle. Sometimes I question if League is for me at all. I'm not a competitive person, and all of my best memories with the game have come from playing it for fun with other people. I also don't want to quit because I still like League a lot. I'm grateful for the things that this game has given me, and I think I can get even more valuable stuff. I approach it in a different way. What can I do about this? I know that Curtis always says something like follow your gut in similar situations, but my gut has been completely contradicting itself a lot lately. Anyways, I feel that as ranked enthusiasts, your perspective might be very valuable. Thank you for reading all this.
Well, first things first, you don't know if League is really for you because you've never really given it a go, right? So
not enough games.
Yeah, we don't know. Right? We straight up don't know.
It's sort of like, it sounds like he's dipping his toe in the water, but he's just not going in. You know, he's like, oh, it's a little bit cold in there. It's a little bit thing. I'm playing 1 to 2 games here and there, 27 games. But, you know, you just, like, honestly, you've got to
dive in.
You got to just dive in and have that 30% win rate, negative in bronze, in silver. If that's the reality. You have to sort of get comfortable with the experience and get the reps and yeah, sort of just become I guess your identity in a way has to become a solo queue player. Yeah. Like you have to become. That's a
really great point. I love that because his identity is like
he's not a solo
the
queue
casual
player.
normal games player.
Yes,
and so when he dives into ranked, it's like he's allergic to the water type thing. Like that's why he dips in his toe. He's like, oh, that's not for me.
He's not the beach person.
No, yeah, exactly right. And you know what screamed to me this entire time when I was listening?
He's a pool person, not a beach person.
Well, I would even say for me, I resonate with this from a gym perspective.
Yeah.
I had an identity level when I was younger, was not a gym person. I wasn't a fitness person or whatever. That wasn't me, right? So that's the way I trained my brain. And so whenever I got into the gym, I remember like I went once or twice with some friends. I'm like, it's not
You wouldn't be curious. You wouldn't want to learn any of the machines. You're just there to just show up and get out.
Yeah.
That's what you were
because
there
at
to
an
do.
identity level, I perceived that this was not for me.
No.
But in reality, gym became a very big part of my life later on because I realized that no, gym is for me, health is for me, and I just didn't give it enough of a shot. I didn't try.
You didn't see like what does 5 like dive head first in. Okay, what does 6 weeks in the gym look like for me? And they're like, oh, you start seeing results. And you have the noob gains and stuff.
And so if he does 6 weeks of ranked solo queue with a process and, you know, a champ pool and picks a role and does 6 weeks of solo queue, 3 blocks no matter what, you know, 6 days a week, let's say he does 21 ranked games a week for 6 weeks. What's that? 140, whatever it is, games. Great. Now, at the end of that 6 weeks, you will have a much clearer idea if the rank experience
even by week 3, you'll start... The way you feel when you play ranked will feel completely different in just a span of 2 weeks. I mean, me and you, Curtis, coming back to the game, I don't know if you have felt that because for people context, Curtis and I haven't really played ranked seriously for this whole year. We're trying really hard this next split. Literally from a week ago, me jumping into ranked, I had a different feeling than me jumping into ranked now. My confidence level's different. The way that I'm just muscle memory, my brain's working faster, different. Just how much 1 week of playing consistently can do for League. You actually feel like a different player.
Yeah.
So 6 weeks is like, so that's really the summary, Curtis. Your gut's contradicting yourself is because you don't know until you've tried.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some great questions here, but like you did mention it, you are overthinking a little bit. You need to do, right? Okay, so something that also there's a quote, one of my favorite quotes is, action precedes motivation.
Absolutely. Yeah, when he said motivation there, that's not the word you want to be saying. I'm motivated to play ranked. That can't be the case.
You got to take action, and action is the most important thing. So my suggestion, our suggestion, I'm assuming is the same thing, which is set a goal. It's like, okay, or a challenge, and let's just call it, let's do a 4-week challenge even. I think a 4-week challenge would be great.
Yep.
4-week challenge. Lock in a set amount of games, lock in your champ pool, lock in when you're going to play in a day, and rain, hell or shine. We're talking, if you're doing 0-3, doesn't matter. Like, you got to commit to your 3 block, and do that 6 days a week, 3 blocks, 21 games a week, boom, 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 boom. And then right back after your 4 weeks. That's what I would recommend. And then we can actually have a discussion. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And then you can see if it actually makes sense with your lifestyle, if it's something you want to integrate into your life or not. But we just don't have the sample size right now.
All right. I think short and sweet. That's it for that
like
one.
it.
All right, next one here comes from Calvin. The title of this email is Returning Player's Guide. Hey guys, I recently came back to League and want to start pushing ranked again. However, I quickly realized I'm completely out of touch with the game. I'm new to this map, the new champs like Smolder, Hwei, and a bunch more, including reworked champions like Skana. In my first games back, I could barely CS without using up my entire mental stack, never mind looking at the map. Not sure how useful this is. This'll to your response to me, but I was solid gold 4, gold 3 ADC main, pretty much one trick in misfortune before I had to put the game down late 2023. I guess my question is, what would you recommend to players who've taken extensive breaks from the game and want to get back into the game? I feel pretty overwhelmed in my games, even if I'm on the winning team. A side note, it's nice to see you guys are still doing what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing how your ideas have changed over time. I've watched only 2 podcasts so far, and I'm already intrigued. Keep it up, guys. This guy wrote in after 2 episodes.
Wow. I mean, look, I really wouldn't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Man. You just got to have
sort of the same advice as last one.
You got to have a crack. Like,
yeah. You got to embrace that I know nothing. You think about it, it's like you're a kid in a playground, man. Just fuck around with this. Have like 3 CS one game, and try and fight people, and you just got to really respect. I mean, he's literally using the terminology like mental stack. Like, yeah, of course you're gonna have a
it's like a muscle.
Stack.
Mental stack is like a muscle, and the only way you can't talking about you gonna go into the gym is not gonna do anything. You got to just get in there and lift shit. Just throw weight around. It doesn't matter. Like, you got to get comfortable getting in the rift and then experiencing things. And like Nathan, you were saying before, like even just 1 week of games will go a huge way for him. Things will start to click. Oh, I remember how it felt to do that. Or, you'll start to be able to gather more information, process more information. So look, my suggestion is that you don't need to jump into ranked on your main account. You can maybe even go on a second account if you have one and play ranked on your second account. You could play a bunch of ranked flex, whatever, but you got to just get in there. Yeah. And it's got to be messy, and you got to accept that you're going to lose a lot.
Yeah. What advice that you and I could always echo is learning the game or relearning the game in this champ from the lens of just one champion to keep it simple. Yeah. So if the title of this one's Returning Player's Guide, the guide I would say is let's just pick one champion. Let's just literally just one trigger for 2 weeks, and let's just start experiencing the game through the lens of a champion rather than going into it like I'm experiencing the whole game.
Let's remove the whole question. Oh, should I swap my champion? Remove the whole variable of champ pool. Let's just remove it.
Don't have to think about it.
Don't have to think about it. I'm going to play MF every single game, no matter what. Rain, hail, or shine, boom. Great, go for it. You have some great games. You have some shit games. You're going to have the easy games, super hard games. That's okay. But at least you know you're loading in and you know what your abilities do. You're going to have way more muscle memory. The quicker or the sooner you don't have to think about your champion, the more you can be actually aware of your surroundings. You're actually playing the game and being aware of your environment and all this other stuff. So that's why I think that's really good advice.
Learn the game from the lens of a champion. It becomes way more digestible and clean. All right, next one here. This one comes from Alias. How to choose your secondary. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. I'm an Emerald top lane Garen player. I started my journey playing Garen as the first champ I really got into, and OTP'd him to easily digest the fundies of the game. That's, I think that would be what this guy Australian. That's a short word for fundamentals. We like to shorten things in Australia. And I sort of one people may not know that we call McDonald's Maccas here.
Yep.
There's some quick little tips there, how to speak Australian. Although I think a good Garen is more than capable of climbing to Challenger, I would still want a secondary champ to play if he gets banned, picked, or the enemy have a top 3 counter pick. I feel like I can easily have a secondary as long as they are not a champ that requires you to OTP them for 100 games to do well, but picking one has not been so easy. I'm stuck in terms of what mindset is correct for picking a secondary. I would have thoughts like I should pick another top laner with a similar game plan style as Garen. Maybe I should play another champion that does well into Garen's counter picks, does well into Garen, or even just pick another easy champion with a different identity to Garen, or a tank or an AP or a range top laner. So far, I've been trying to learn Kayle, Darius, and Tryndamere on an alt account with around 30 to 50 games each, give or take, but neither of them stick out as a good secondary so far. Although I am leaning more towards Kayle for versatility purposes, and most games, even in Emerald, aren't being closed out before 30 minutes, so I have time to scale. If I have the wrong idea entirely and your thoughts are just pick a secondary you enjoy, that's fine, and I'll be fine doing that, but even if it's in theory, and I would say I enjoyed Garen more than any other champion to be relevant, but I don't want to one trick, is there a way to find an optimal secondary? Regards, new BBC enthusiasts. He said further gaming league background if needed, not necessary. He says, I'm a top 500 Overwatch player from UK who went semi-pro, then stopped around a year ago and have been investing most of my time into League. I started playing the game casually in Season 10, then only started grinding ranked seriously Season 13 Split 2, climbing from Silver to Emerald in that split, then plateauing at Emerald.
Okay, so the way I would tackle this is that there is no right answer. It depends on... what I'm going to do, I think the way I want to tackle this is give you all the options, okay?
List them out.
Okay, so you can be primarily an OTP, where you want to play, let's say, the overwhelming majority of your games with Garen, and then you just want something to plug and play every now and then when you're versing a hardcore counter. Okay, so that is a viable... So theoretically then, you're kind of still an OTP, but you would just play a very easy to execute pick that would counter one of the most obvious counters to your champion. So let's say, for example, Vayne or something, right? You would find a secondary pick that would be A, easy to execute, that doesn't require many games, but B, would do well into Vayne. And you could do that. That would be a completely viable 2-trick champion pool. And ideally, that second champion would counter as many of your counters as possible. So you would say there's 3 hardcore counters. Ideally, you find a champion that does well into all 3 of them, if that even exists, or at least as many of them as possible. So that, again, I would still categorize you as an OTP, but with very, very casually whipping out that very niche counter pick. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, you have the option of being an actual 2-trick. Okay, so if you're an actual 2-trick, you would have to play less Garen and genuinely properly learn another champion, right? So you could pick another champion that arguably is similar to Garen, but I don't really see the point of that, because then you'd be picking them in the same situations. Ideally, the second champion would be something that would cover Garen's bad games. So the most pragmatic way to do that is you would take screenshots of all the drafts that you don't feel comfortable picking Garen, or are objectively bad Garen.
Or you could just go into your OPGG and look at some of your Garen losses. And
that works as well.
That.
And be like, okay, what champ would fit in all these games? And that could be a hard champion, but you'd have to be willing to invest time into it. And then at that point, you would be less of a Garen player and more of a 2-trick. That obviously requires more time, but that would actually be better in the long term with your development as a player, because it would expand your view of the game. Okay. And then I guess, the third one, which I was going to say, which is like you just kind of pick a second champion that is super similar to Garen for the sake of just having diversity. But again, I don't really like that option, because why? It's not practical, right? And you say there's a champion you just find fun, but it sounds like to me there is no other champ that he actually just finds quote unquote fun. He just wants something that's practical. So I would argue the first two work. A very, very niche counter pick that you'd pick very situationally that's easy to execute. Or B, like I said, you actually kind of expand your pool and become a genuine kind of 2-trick. What do you think?
Yeah, I think those are some great options. I think that, I was thinking about my champ pool, Curtis, and like when I sort of switch between mine. So like currently what I'm doing Rek'Sai is my main, Jarvan. So Rek'Sai is like my default blind pick. So I always swap in the draft to the highest, right? Then I do, and like, let's say if they pick, like, let's say if they have first pick or maybe someone doesn't swap with me and then I sort of see the comp and they have a bunch more like range champions, like, okay, maybe Jarvan's a bit better in this, but like Rek'Sai and Jarvan are like sort of similar. And then I have Volibear as well, which I'll just feel like I have like clear dive bot lane. I could just repeat dive like I got a Draven or something like that. And then I just have my AP pick currently is a Mumu. But that's like my thought process. But like all those champs, maybe it's more different in jungle than top lane because there's more like counter picks and stuff like that.
Well, kind of, because what you've just said there is that you kind of have 2 semi-core picks and then 2 counter picks, right? Really niche picks, right?
Yeah,
so your volley and your Mumu are very niche, right? You barely pick them.
No.
And then your main 2 are your Jarvan and your Rek'Sai, right?
Yeah.
But even your Rek'Sais are your main. That's, I would say, what you just described there is the most normal way of playing, where you have your 2 core champions that are going to give you the majority of your LP, but one of them you're going to specialize in, and then you have 2 kind of niche counter picks. That's a traditional way of a pool. But I would say for his case, he's not really interested in having a more well-rounded pool. He wants to specialize.
A secondary champ. Yeah.
So this is where it gets tricky because I might say, okay, it's objectively best for him to learn another champion that expands his view of the game, right? But he might not have fun doing that. And so it may be completely futile for him to do that because he might not get any learning because you're not engaged. So, I know it sounds very cheesy, but you have to somewhat enjoy the other champions you're playing. Otherwise, you're not going to be engaged. You're not really going to want to learn, especially for players like this that tend to want to be an OTP. So my hunch for his case is go as far down the rabbit hole with Garen until you start to get burnt out, then become a genuine 2-trick and expand your pool. For the time being, I think what he should do is just have a somewhat easy to execute pick that fills the holes where it's a really bad Garen game. And then, so he's still playing maybe 80% of 75% Garen, 25% of this other one, and then do that until you feel like you're sick of that or you've done what you wanted to do, and then you can start to expand into a more diverse player. That would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, cool.
So they're all your options anyway. You have to think about that. We can't decide for you. That's something you're gonna have to do some introspection on.
A bunch of different paths you can potentially take. Maybe you can sort of try some here and there and see how they go.
Yeah, exactly right.
Try one for a week. Try for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Last email here, this guy, that last one was an Overwatch player. This one's from a fighting games player. This is from Talia. Fighting games and League of Legends is what this email is called. Hey, Nathan and Curtis. Not a super heavy League player anymore, but I'm a high-level Street Fighter player. I've stumbled across your podcast recently, and it's nice to have some positive gaming content to put on in the background while I'm at work. It's crazy to me how people expect themselves to be able to play so many champions in League. In fighting games, we normally stick to 1 or 2 characters, even at the top level, even though fighting game characters are much more complex than the ones in League. The game of League is so complicated, I couldn't imagine trying to learn the fundamentals at the same time as so many characters. Keep up the good work and keep spreading the good mentality. P.S. I love the way you discuss about the mental stack. I very rarely hear the concept talked about outside of fighting game circles.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, I mean, if you actually really think about it, right? Like, League, I truly think many of these concepts in League, like we talk about champ mastery as if it's like some breakthrough concept, right? Yeah. And the reason it is kind of people, oh my God, champ mastery, is it really that important? Like, the reason I think all of these concepts that in our mind are relatively straightforward, or even objectively are not that overly complicated, are in League, is because League is such a new game. And also on top of that, the game was perceived in this very casual way for so long, in the sense that there was all these like pre-existing like ancient ideas that that have propagated over time that stem from season 1, season 2, and season 3.
It's like that 10 CS per minute one.
Yeah, like the 10 CS per minute one from LS, right? So what you get is you get all these like really outdated concepts, but because no one knew any better, and because everyone was bad at the game, you could get away with breaking these laws. So what happened is that, and also the key one here, and this is the really crazy one, because League is so complex, if you have just been simply playing more of the game for more years, you can get away with things by just having played more of the game.
The reps.
So what happened, right, is that you get players like, let's just take an OG player like Double Lift or some shit, right? He's played the game since season 1, and he's played thousands of games. So even though he would have had like the most shocking process and like all this stuff, right? Even if someone came in season, let's say he played till season 8, and someone started playing the game in season 5, he has 5 years on these people. So even if this person who played in season 5 has a way better understanding of the game, Doublelift is so far ahead because he's got 8 years of game experience. This person has only played the game for 3 years or something. So you can't win. So what happens is that then these people who are at the authority at the high Apex tiers, who have all the authority, have no idea what they're talking about because they've just played the game for so long that they can't even articulate why they're able to kind of in a way break the game or break the way you learn the game just because they've played tens of thousands of hours. Yeah. So this is why you get players like Peckinwolf, for example, right? He's such a prodigy like League player because he's played tens of thousands of games over a decade, like literally 15, 14 years, right? So that guy has no perception of how to learn League because he's just played the game for an immense amount of time. So he doesn't need, champ mastery in his mind doesn't really need to exist. These concepts that are so fundamental to the learning experience of the game are completely gone over their head.
And these are the first people that are introduced to when you search up League or
exactly
watch League
right. They're at the top of the hierarchy.
They're just like, they're automatically already like maximizing their kit, and it just looks effortless.
It looks like effortless. Yeah. So because in League, you're not learning from people that had learnt the game and in a proper way. So this is why we're in ancient times in League of Legends, because in any other traditional sport, you think about football or tennis, right? Those people learnt the proper way. They got a tennis coach when they were like 3 years old. They had to hold the racket a particular way. Their footwork had to be a particular way. They know the backhand, forehand. They had to learn that sport in a particular way. In League,
the rest of us in season 1, 2, 3,
we didn't have that.
You just throw enough shit at a wall, eventually it sticks, and then the top rise to the cream of the top, and they just keep playing the game, and then the others just like stop playing the game.
So what will happen eventually in League is that
well, experience can hurt you as well, right? Because you're set in your ways. Like it's like obviously, you know, it does exist that like, you know, let's say someone who's like been playing the game, like let's say you just lose Worlds, for example, right? You know, you have 17-year-old prodigies and stuff. They're playing the game for 2 years, right? That exists, right?
That exists. But I'm just saying for the average player.
Yeah, for the average player. It's sort of hard to like catch up.
It's hard to catch up. Yeah. So my point is that I just think we're at a time in the time of League history where this is only possible because of how young the game is. In another 10 years, right? It will be like people are learning the proper way more commonly. Like coaching is more, you know, available. People understand coaching techniques more and can break down concepts more. So 10 years from now, the idea of 3 blocking and champ mastery will just be like, no shit. That's what you got to do. But like, you know, you say that 5 years ago from now, back in the day.
It's like, oh, Champion League has 4 abilities. You know,
not that hard.
Yeah, how easy is that? Your 4 abilities.
We have to argue with people now to this day that League is a hard game. Like, what the?
That's what we have 220 episodes on.
Yeah. We're sitting here trying to
have the comments in TikTok and Instagram saying, yeah, League's
not that hard. Nah. You say it all the time.
League's not complicated.
League's not complicated. And like you have these conversations and it's just like mind boggling. So it's just, it's just where we're at. Great little email though. Thanks for tuning in.
That wraps up our episode then today, Curtis. Good work, guys. 3-block process, champion mastery. We'll see you guys next week.